Hey guys, it's Jordan, and welcome to Call Your Hits, another Storm Riders Airsoft podcast.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. As you heard in the intro today, my guest is Jordan. He's here to talk to us all about Midsummer Nightmare 8, which is the latest iteration of the Midsummer Nightmare event held by Stag Ops. This year, it was held in a new location. It was held at Delta Action Sports in Ringe, New Hampshire. And it was in the second, well, I think it was August 8th to 10th, so like basically the second week of August of 2025. We hadn't had a chance to connect yet. It's been a couple of weeks, but I know it's going to be fresh in Jordan's mind, and I'm really excited to hear more about the event. So to give a little bit of context for these types of events, these are not your typical force on force style mil sims. The Midsummer Nightmare event is what Stag Ops called a field deployment exercise, or FDX. Basically, like, it's a full immersion event where all the players are on one team trying to complete their objectives over the course of the 2 nights, basically, against a group of Op4 who are all basically, they're also players like in the community, but they're all essentially staff, right? So they're trying to create this experience for the players, and hence the name Midsummer Nightmare. It's supposed to be like a spooky, so like creepy sort of vibes. I love talking to Jordan about this because he gets so hyped talking about it, because it's one of his favorites events that they have down there. So, Jordan, man, it's always good to talk to you about this. Thanks for being on.
Absolutely, Phil. I can't wait. I can't wait to talk about it. Like you said, it's been a couple of weeks, but I've been thinking about it a lot since it happened.
So we talked last year again about Midsummer Nightmare 7. There, some challenges, etc. New location this year. So I guess right off the hop, what was really different, like especially in the lead up to it and like showing up and getting to the event, like what was different about it this year for you?
So I'd say specifically this year, it was a brand new place that most people had not played at yet. This field, it's called Delta Action Sports. It's in Ringe, New Hampshire. It is predominantly worked on by people that do Vietnam-style historical-based milsims. So the entire field itself is, with all of the things that you'd expect from Vietnam, a Vietnam reenactment field, has great natural cover. It has stylized villages that you feel like you are kind of in that zone when you're coming in. It's not normal structures made out of wood. These are buildings made out of sticks, with makeshift barriers and bunkers all over the place, as well as a main service road and a body of water that cuts the field in half, essentially, with only one real good way to access I guess what you would say is the enemy territory.
Mhm.
At least that's how I was expecting it, that the enemies would mostly be on the other side of the field. That was not the case.
Mhm.
They were all over the place, and their spawn was slightly closer, I think, than most of us had anticipated. But preparation-wise, this year it kind of came up quick on us. I think that there was some final things that Stag Ops was trying to finalize with the field, which ended up with the tickets being released pretty late for the event. Normally, it's about 6 to 8 weeks before the event. I think we had just about 4 weeks
Oh.
from the ticket drop to when the actual event happened. So it was extremely short notice. I mean, we knew when it was happening, but we were still waiting for further details. And all of that stuff got released about a month out for the event. So short notice, I'd say. We ended up having one of the guys on our team, Tanner, ended up being the CO for the event. So he ended up being the CO of the entire JTF Panther was our task force name. Shepherd was previous. JTF Panther is the new group that came together at this new location called Lesser Luau. And essentially, he ran 2 platoons worth of guys out onto the field, and it was a weekend. It was not something that we ever really expected, I'd say. Tanner, even when he was talking about preparation to people that had not gone to Midsummers before, was referencing last year as hey, we may not have a lot of gunplay. There might not be a lot of shooting. There might be a lot of waiting around. Um, to which I always think of one experience that I had at Midsummer Nightmare, which was don't ever expect last year to be indicative of what this year will bring.
Hmm.
Last year, we didn't have a lot of gunfighting. It was a lot of waiting around. We talked about this in the previous podcast. There were some issues at the previous field. This year was not that. There was no waiting around. There was a lot of gunfighting. It was almost total violence the entire time. And it was brutal. It was specifically brutal, where no Midsummers previous really would have prepared anybody for this outside of make sure you have some stuff to sleep in the field in and make sure you have enough food and water, that type of stuff. And night vision. Night vision was not necessary. There were people that were doing great without it. But we played through the night and into the dark more at this Midsummer than any Midsummer that we had ever been to. We didn't go to sleep or really have like a rest type period until about 5 a.m. The Saturday morning after we started. So we stepped off at about 8 o'clock at night and we were going the entire time until about 5 or 6 in the morning, where finally the sun started to come up and it seemed like some of the enemy combatants had maybe taken a break from the brutality that they were handing out all night long, to get some rest. So just it was a short period of preparation, a lot of anticipation, but it's always difficult to prepare for these events. You never really know what's coming.
Yeah, and I was reading, I mean, a couple of changes that I read in the rule set because, of course, we had talked about attending the event, and because I over prepare, I was like reading as much information as I could. And, like one of the things I noticed is, for example, they weren't permitting any flare or thermals for players or, I guess the staff people. I forget what they're called. This is the red team.
Stag Ops Red Team.
Stag
Yeah.
Ops
So
Red Team.
that's not a new rule. That's been in the rules from at least last year. I know of it at least last year. They also had that rule, but that is a thing. They don't want any thermals at this event because they need to be able to lay situations on you without you seeing it coming, or with various degrees of preparation. And for those of people that have used thermal to detect people and animals and stuff like that, it kind of gets rid of the element of surprise that a lot of people would have, just because, outside of using hard cover, there's not a lot of stuff that will hide you from thermal vision.
Right.
So yeah, that is not allowed at any of these field deployment exercises, but at any of the force on force events that they have, totally allowed.
Gotcha.
Nothing against it.
So, firstly, how many players were on JTF Panther this year? Usually it's about 50, right?
I think we had 55 or 60 this year. We had a decent amount of players. I know the roster filled up extremely quick. Tickets dropped, and I think they sold out within 20 minutes or so of the drop, and that was like the only drop for the event. I think they might have opened up one more pass. I'm not sure. I got mine in the first pass, and then I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to this. All of our guys got the tickets when we needed them. But yeah, it was a very full year. I think it was like 55 or 60 guys that were out there on JTF Panther.
And was it sort of the same, like relatively similar setup that you've done in the past at Midsummer Nightmare, where you go and you set up your fob or your cop or whatever you want to call it, and you run missions from there basically the entire time that you're there, and you also have to hold the flag and all this kind of stuff?
So same idea, but they structured that piece slightly differently. So the people that had the tents at this location, they're historical pieces of equipment, like very, very old military tents that they've maintained and restored. They don't want them getting shot at with BBs, like, ever. They don't want any gunfighting happening near them. So in order to kind of avoid that, we had our main base, which is where we had our tent set up and where we would get our mission briefings and all that. And then just about 150 feet, maybe 200 feet or so outside of the main base, we had a point that we called Obsidian. And Obsidian was kind of like a flat area where there was a boat landing, where we had our base's flag, where if they were to take down the flag, we were no longer able to respawn in our base. So our defense was not from the base directly, as it was in previous years. It was about 250 feet or so, in front of it.
Hmm.
But the same type of idea. We were, patrolling an area, holding defense around this flag, which was compared to other years, closer than it ever has been to the enemy forces. Like they had the shortest amount of distance to travel to get to that flag and send us home, essentially, have to respawn from the parking lot than any year previous.
And so you meant so before we dive into the meat of it, I also just want to touch on the fact that this was the subtitle of Midsummer Nightmare 8 was Savage Luau. So and I'm getting like a bunch of Polynesian themes just overall. But I also like you talk about the savage piece, right? Like so it was both of those things, right? It was both like a luau, but also extremely like just brutal gunfighting the entire time. Essentially, is this?
Oh, it was. There was little downtime for the event for our squad specifically. So the pairs with team or with Project Camelot, we were kind of split into two separate groups. So we had like four pairs in each squad, and then we had Project Camelot guys within those squads as well. All of our friends that we play with all the time, and um, it was squad 1-1 and squad 1-2 was both of our squads, and we were rarely in the base for more than 10 minutes at a time, um, outside of like one or two occasions where we sat down to maybe eat lunch when we needed to, but even then it was like a 30-minute break at most, and most of the time it was like, all right guys, sit down, reload, grab a snack, drink water, get back out there immediately. And maybe it was just our two squads. I think a lot of other squads were quick turnarounds as well. But Tanner had no fear in sending us out repeatedly over and over and over again to get whatever we needed done.
Mhm.
So it was it was brutal. The first night particularly was brutal. Getting to the base was brutal. The missions that we had that first evening were really, really tough. In fact, that whole location is kind of a very difficult location to fight in against an entrenched, dug in force. It's not a lot of structures out in the woods. A lot of it is foxholes and just natural cover. And when somebody takes like a spot out there that they can take cover and they just lay prone and they have an ambush on you, it can get really bad really quick because there's not much around you to use for
Mhm.
cover. All that you really can do is hit the deck and start crawling. And that was a lot of our fighting this time around was, oh, we're starting to get shot at. Okay, where are we getting shot at from? We're going to start crawling around. We were on the ground a lot this up, which is not out of the ordinary for our group, where we're always willing to crawl and get on the ground and get dirty. But this one, that was like the majority of the time what our cover was just low fallen trees and
Mhm.
overgrown grass and ferns and other greenery and stuff. There wasn't a lot of like hip height or higher actual cover out on the field.
So the gunfighting aside, I mean, like gunfighting in airsoft is gunfighting in airsoft, right?
Oh yeah.
The venue changes, but it's always relatively similar. One of the things that makes Midsummer Nightmare different from other events is the vibes, right? It's not your typical like it's firstly it's not your typical force on force event, but it's also an event where the staff can create like the red team can create situations that are designed to be creepy or weird or difficult or what have you, which is the whole intent, right, behind this kind of
Mm-hmm.
event and which sort of in conversations with you I know is a huge part of the appeal, right? And I know that last year probably was because of low. I think it was because of low staff numbers last year. They didn't
They did
really hit
not
the
have the
mark.
staff. Yep,
Yeah,
they
they
didn't
didn't
have
hit
the
the
staff
mark.
for it
So
last
what was
year.
that like this year? What were the vibes like?
They had plenty of staff this year. I'll tell you that. I don't know if they ended up having 30 or 40 red team, but it was at least half of the amount that we had, which was different than years past, which I think was more around like 15 to 20. 15 to 20 staff members against 50 or 60 guys is difficult because 15 to 20 is like the size of a squad,
Hmm.
right? So if they're putting a squad sized element somewhere out on the field for you to maneuver on and do an objective from, that means that there's not anybody around to just harass you and be in the area to keep you on edge, come in and try to take the flag from behind you. That was kind of like last year. There wasn't a lot of tension. This year, there was almost no time where I didn't feel like we could be under attack at any given moment. Um, we were a new force in the area, which I would attribute a lot of this to. In previous years, we had been in that location for a while. So if we're going lore based, these people have been fighting this war against our group of people for years. I'd
Hmm.
say we had been in that area for a long time. Um, the group this time, I'm not sure if they were told to or they just did dial up the violence levels to maximum, but there was storytelling, absolutely. There were cool missions that we had objectives to attain, but a lot of it was just walking into ambushes of guys. We did get to do some actual LARPing. We met with the village chief, which was kind of like the good guys. They were part. So the long short of it is there was a group called Pain, and I'm not going to try to explain the acronym right now, but they were essentially um, the Hambuti's armed revolutionary militia from the last location. So they were the guys that would shoot at us. They were there to stop us from doing what we were doing. And at this location, there was a group of locals, which obviously they would switch sides between Pain and locals depending on what the mission need was. Um, but a lot of our interactions with the locals were trying to rid the area of Pain or get things back from Pain that they may have stolen from the locals. For instance, they had a couple of totems that were these big pieces of wood, huge, like cut pieces of like logs from trees that were probably like 60 to 80 pounds. Like it was like like literally like a tree, like a log. Um, that had like paintings and drawings on them, and those on a couple occasions we had to retrieve those from certain areas from Pain and return them to the villages. And depending on whether or not you passed or failed that mission, surprise, the first night we failed that mission at like 2:30 in the morning trying to retrieve a totem from the Pain base, where it was probably not a lot of Pain guys, but they had an elevated position up on top of a hill, and we were fighting in the dark towards elevation. It was very difficult. There wasn't a good way to get to them. Um, they didn't. I don't know if they had a great idea of us like the first like night. I don't think, at least our squad, we didn't get that totem, and it was okay. If you don't get this totem, we may not like you. We may be hostile to you going forward. And it was a village of like 15 guys. And I'm like,
Hmm.
we got to walk past these guys on the way back. We're going to come back and say, we don't have your totem. It's 2:30 in the morning. You guys have been waiting for like an hour. How do I know we're not going to come back and they're just going to kill us
Yeah.
and send us back to base because we failed the mission? The vibes were definitely different this year, I'd say. I know that they wanted to make a point for squads to get more lore in it this year. I do think that, at least in my experience with my squad, that didn't happen very much. And I don't know if it was our CO that wasn't relaying all of the context. I know we had a lot of like, get this from here, but I didn't, as the squad lead, get a lot of context behind a lot of the missions outside of, this is where we believe that they are. We believe they're dug in here. Either retrieve this item or clear the area of
Right.
the armed locals. So a little bit different this year. I'd say the storytelling and the vibes were there, but I didn't get as much of them as I'd want. I'm always like, give me a mission, give me the context. Like, what's my motivation? What am I supposed to be doing here?
Right.
And there was a lot more shooting this year than years past, and less role play, at least from my squad.
Hmm. And like, it's interesting because at this kind of event, like shooting obviously is a huge part of creating that tension. Although sometimes not shooting is also part of creating that tension. Um, how did your squad mates sort of like, because you talk about you wanting sort of that extra context and stuff. Overall, how did was your squad faring with all this kind? Were you just sort of wiped and just going through the
Oh,
motions at that point,
we
or
were just
like,
doing it.
yeah,
We were just doing it. So Jeff's squad, Jeff, one of the other pairs, he was running squad 1-2, and I was talking to him, and they didn't get like an actual lick of sleep. Like, I think they were only in the field time, and we were only in the field time as well. But we had a position on the field at a point where I think they were going on a mission where we actually got to like lay down all of our guys while we were in a position and take a nap. I think I ended up getting like 2 hours of sleep in that period, which was significant compared to a lot of the people um, who didn't get that. They didn't get enough sleep at all. So we were lucky where we got positioned around that time. But I talked to Jeff, and I'm like, Jeff, how you doing, man? And he's just like, we're handling it, we're doing it. And I talked to him afterwards, and he's like, yeah, I was so tired, I was just kind of like a zombie, just like following orders. Like Tanner would tell us to go somewhere, and he'd be like, yes sir, and we'd just go do it and just be walking along like these were our orders, we're going to go do it, because there wasn't even enough energy to think through a lot of the things that we had to do at that point. We had been up, or at least his squad had been up almost completely through the entire event with like 15 minutes of sleep. Like I said, our guys were lucky. We got more on the 2 hour end of a sleep cycle. But there was no sleep cycles. There was no sleep cycles. We were never told to go sleep. We were told to, hey, while you guys are holding this position, pull 50s or 50-50s. So that's like 50% of our guys try to take a nap. The other guys are on security that time. And then after an hour, switch off, have somebody else take a nap. That's it. We didn't have an actual rest period ever. We were never told to lay down, go to bed. And that's in contrast to previous Midsummer Nightmares, where squads would have, all right, you have between 12 and 1:30. This is going to be your rest period for tonight. Like, go lay down for an hour and a half and try to sleep. And then obviously you could get woken up by gunfighting at any time. But that's not what this was this year. There was no rest schedule. We weren't told to lay down and go to bed. It was good luck, find time to sleep when you can. You're going to be doing it out in the field. So I slept under a tree, just with my head resting against the wood. I know I looked over, my buddy was doing the same thing right in front of me. We didn't actually have a night of sleep until the very end, when the event was done.
The sleep of the gods, as they call
I
it.
believe that is what Gordon called it. This year specifically, it was that. It was funny because we all started bringing hammocks to events like this, because it's just so nice to not have to sleep on the ground, right? And hammocks pack down really, 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 really low. So at the very end of the event, we had all set up our hammocks, and there was like 12 or 13 of us just up in the woods, just in a hammock. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m. There was like no sounds going on at all. And I like peek out from my tent, and it's just like dead silent with like all these hammocks and like fog like rolling through it. I'm like, this is weird. I don't think I have to go to the bathroom anymore. I'm just gonna go back. I'm just gonna go back to sleep and hope for the best. But yeah, no, it was a particularly difficult year when it came to just being tired. I don't say that we're going through the motions. We were doing what we were told to do. But we were gassed a lot of the time. And the only thing that really kept us going was we were eating food. Every time we came back to base, we had snacks when we went out there, and we were trying to get rest as much as I can. There was actually an engagement that I died in, and I bled out. So I was a ghost. And I found a rock, and I just laid down, and I was like, just chilling there. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll close my eyes. And I think I fell asleep for like 30 minutes, like while there was like a fight going on. Because I was dead. There was nothing for me to do. Like I couldn't do anything. If my guys were going to leave, they were going to wake me up, right? But I looked over, and there was like another guy next to me who was doing the same thing. I'm like, you have to find sleep when you can, right? That was the most experience like that I've ever had.
Did you think that was better than having the like defined rest periods? Like, if you had to do it again but include defined rest periods, like what would you rather?
So I think it was more realistic. If we're looking at it like that, obviously me having never been in an actual combat scenario or overseas or anything, I'm just a LARPer. I don't know how it would work out in the field, but I can't imagine that people that are out on a recon mission would be like, all right, between the hours of 3 and 6 a.m., we're all going to go to sleep and somebody else is going to cover us. Like, we were essentially accountable for our own squads the entire time, which was figure out what your squad needs, figure out if everybody's good to go, make sure that they're all topped up on everything that they need, and take rest when you can. So do I think it was better or worse? I don't think I could say either. I could say it was a more, in my opinion, a more immersive experience rather than like, oh, go sleep in the tent for an hour and a half and then somebody will come wake you up. This was find sleep where you can, and you might get shot at, and that's might wake you up. There might be an explosion over your head, and now you're fighting. In fact, there was one of our guys was sleeping. His name's Doc, and he was sleeping, and somebody came over and like tapped him on the shoulder, and he woke up, pulled his pistol, and started firing. Like there was an engagement happening, and they're like, "Whoa, stop! Like what's going on?" And I just know that I never want to sleep next to him.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. So
So I don't really think we want to go through like just the whole event, sort of like, oh, on day one we did this, on day two we did this, but
mhm.
like aside, I guess what let's talk about the most memorable moments for you. Like aside from the the sleeping where you can, this kind of stuff. What was the most like LARPy moment for you of the event? Like where you got the most interaction with, like, villagers or actors basically.
So there was a time where we went to a village and we were trying to convince them that to leave the area. Essentially, this area wasn't safe. We need you to vacate the premises because pain is, going to come and harm you. Essentially, and there was like an ongoing conversation there where it was all armed military age males, like fighting age males that we were talking to, and at any given point, that situation could have gone real bad. They could have grabbed guns from their cabins that were right behind them, their little huts, um, and gotten really really bad. There were a couple of situations that were kind of like that, where we were trying to interact with the locals or trying to interact with villagers. There was specifically a drunk guy that like was walking up and down the road. Was talking about his wife back home or some old lady, somebody that he cared about. I bet you Joe would probably remember if you asked her, because she was right next to me during that. And he was just kind of walking around belligerent for a period of time. But my overall interactions, like my most memorable ones, are probably not with the role players this year. Honestly, like I think my most memorable interactions that I had were with my guys in my squad this year, specifically during the more difficult times that we were having out on the field. Um, it's very difficult to stay positive a lot of the time. I'd say I think it's an active thing that you need to try to do in situations that are specifically tough, which is what this event is supposed to do. It's supposed to be psychologically and physically and mentally taxing the entire time. And when you start getting upset and you start getting grumpy and you're tired, like things can go crappy really, really quick. And I think that overall, there was definitely some whining and some complaining and some various other things that happened. Um, but I think my most memorable experiences were just the quick turnarounds with the guys. There was never a like, all right, we're not going to do it. Did I go back and say like, hey, we got to go in 10 minutes? And they were like, dude, really? Like, absolutely. They said that a bunch of times. Sometimes it wasn't 10 minutes. Sometimes it was 5. And we just got back after being out for 3 hours. But it was our group has a very can-do attitude. And the most memorable thing that I have is probably the lack of downtime. Like that was like the most impactful thing for me at this event was it's go, go, go the entire time. There's no true safe time. There's no rest. All of that is just happening with a group of guys that you're up with for 30 hours.
Yeah, you paid for 30
day.
hours. You're gonna get 30 hours.
No, I mean, and we pretty much did. I'd say if I'm looking at it from a situational standpoint, like what the most memorable situation for us was that evening was at least for me, on the infill, which was a little bit different than previous years. Our infill was supposed to essentially bypass all of the enemy forces that are in the area, get to what our base was supposed to be, which was going to be basalt, secure it, and make it safe for our supplies to be brought in, essentially, which is where all of our rucks were with all of our water and all of our extra supplies. And I was
Those were the tents that they weren't allowed to shoot, right? The
exactly
tents, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's where the truck was going to dump everything. And this year for me, I was running squad lead, which I wanted to do. I haven't run squad lead in a while, but I wanted to try it again. And I went out and I got dual comm setups. Like I had 2 radios running into my ear protection, and then I had 2 push to talk so I could talk on both command and squad net. And within the first 20 minutes of the game, all of my comms were dead. I had no comms at all. It just was not working. People could hear me extremely quietly. I could hear them great, but they couldn't hear me transmitting like at all. And it was extremely difficult for me as a squad lead to be able to do squad lead things without being in touch with command.
Mm-hmm.
and neighboring squads, or my squad if I needed to. A lot of it was running up to people, talking to them, as opposed to just talking over the radio for, hey guys in the front, we need to peel right or something. It's me getting up there and telling them to do it instead. So I don't know. There was so much that happened this year. Not as much on the LARP side for me. I know there were plenty of people that had plenty of LARP stuff that happened to them. I saw pictures of it. My squad didn't get that this year. I'd say we were on more of the attack, defend, retrieve type missions, which were mostly hostile. But I don't know if there's something like specific that I can nail down as like that was my most memorable outside of the absolute violence that was being handed out every engagement.
I want to come back though to something that you mentioned, and I mean we'll pair that off with sort of like you're taking the squad lead role as well. But you talked about how people complain because stuff sucks, right? And it's supposed to suck. That's why you're there, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make it suck any less, right? And so how do you navigate that? Like it's one thing to navigate it for yourself, and it's another thing to navigate it for people who are there with you, and ultimately as a squad lead who you are also responsible and accountable both for and to, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
looking to you for the leadership, but they're also they're relying on you to provide the right experience. And like as we often say, like your experience as an airsofter is also making other people's experience better, right? Like that, all that ties in.
Yeah, you're
How
responsible for those around you,
Yeah,
the experience
exactly,
of those
exactly, for
around
their
you. Yeah.
morale as well, and like their
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment. So how do you manage all of that in a situation where shit sucks and it's supposed to suck and it sucks for you at the same time as it sucks for them too, with the final caveat being that a lot of the military experience that people might have might help them in this situation, but in this context there's no stakes, right? Not in the same way. So how do you work through that?
I think for me specifically, one, I will say that I am not a normal squad lead, right? That's not something that I do all the time. This is only the second time that I ever was a squad lead, and I'm extremely new to it. I'm not a perfect example of what a squad lead would be. Um, what I would say from my perspective on how I handle my negativity first, or my negative thoughts, or this sucks thoughts, um, it's just remembering that one, this is all a game. We're all here to play the game, and this is how the game was built. The game was built to be tough and to be difficult. And part of what keeps me playing airsoft is feeling like I can overcome those types of obstacles, even though they might seem awful at the
Mm-hmm.
time. We've had midsummers that were particularly more strenuous. I'd say, like at a bigger location where there was much more hiking, and it was much more tiring getting from place to place. This year it wasn't that. It's a smaller location, so it wasn't as bad walking around. Um, but something that I always think of when we're there is, if I wasn't here with people that I cared about, this would be a lot more difficult for me. I'd say everybody in my group is people that I knew personally,
Mm-hmm.
either my closest friends or people that I play with all the time and are very good friends of mine. And for me, I know that most of the guys are having a good time just by being around the guys. Right. So like when we do have complaints, or we do have things people are speaking up like, yeah, this is BS, I don't want to do this, or, complaining about something that happened. A lot of times for me, I don't necessarily directly address it. Right. Like a lot of times I'll hear it. I'll let them say what they're going to say, and then we'll just continue on with what we're going to do. It's not dismissive, is what I would say. Like, I'm not saying, shut up, you can't talk about that. But unless it's getting overly negative to the point where I feel like it's affecting those around me,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll let those comments go. Like, I'll hear them, I'll take mental note of them. Like, all right, I've heard this person complain about this once. Let me see where we go from here, right? Because I was complaining. There was a time I came off the field at the end of the night and I went, Tanner, where the hell was our backup? It was the end of the game, right? Like the game had just ended. And I felt like our squad was the last squad out on the field. I'm like, where the hell is everybody? Like, we're getting full on attacked by red team right now. There's no backup. It's my squad out there. It's just us. Where is everybody? And we come back to base and we see a bunch of people in base. I was complaining at that
Mm-hmm.
point, right? Because I felt at that point like, I feel like my experience could have been better if there were other people participating. But at the same time, I was in the heat of the moment. right? And I think that's like a big piece of it too. If those complaints are happening all of the time, that's something that I would want to address. That generally was not what it was. I would hear comments here and there. That's pretty typical, like people giving each other crap. But at these types of events, I feel like a lot of emotions come out during those heat of the moment things, and a lot of times you can't really call them out for it. That's a genuine emotion that they're dealing with at that time, because guess what, it sucks, man. It sucks, and maybe it really did just suck for you about 5 minutes ago when you felt like there was nobody there, backing your entire
Yeah.
squad up while you're getting walked on by red team, while they're walking up to you. It was tough. If you can't tell, I have some feelings about how the final situation went down,
Hmm.
um, which I'll go into depth a little bit about the final situation, probably after we're done with this subject. But for me specifically, I think the main thing is I know the guys that are complaining, and I know the guys that are in my group that are either having a good or a bad time, and I think we're all having a good time overall. We just vocalize it in different ways, right? So you can complain all you want, and this is actually what I tell the people at work too, right? Like, if you have complaints, man, come and complain to me, come and talk to me as a person that you want to complain to. I'd rather you not go and cause problems with other groups of people, right? Like, come and
Hmm.
redirect your stuff to me. So I would much rather people in my group come and be like, Jordan, this sucks, I hate this, rather than be like, I have a problem with that guy over there, I'm gonna go start problems with them. Like, no, don't do that. Like, come and complain to me, we'll figure out where it goes from there, and then we'll mediate the situation. And I feel like that's like a lot of how leadership in these types of games go, is like, you need to just work with the crowd that you're given.
Yeah.
I'm not the boss of any of these people, right? Like, I'm not going to tell them to shut up, or I'm going to kick them off the field or make them wait at base. That's not going to
Yeah.
happen. We're all adults, right? So like, I need to let them be their own people within reason, and just make sure that everybody's experience is overall positive, which I think was what was achieved at this event.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that scene from Saving Private Ryan where they were like walking in the field and the soldiers are asking Tom Hanks's character, it's like, "Hey, Captain, how come you don't gripe?" He's like, "Well, I don't gripe to you. Like, I gripe to other people. It's like I gripe.
Yes.
You gripe up, not down,
Yeah, you gripe
right?"
to the people above you. You
Yeah,
don't you don't complain to exactly. You don't complain to like your reports. You complain to the person you report to.
yeah,
That's where it makes sense.
and so I mean, it ties into what you're talking about here, which is like, yes, like you have this moment which we'll talk about, with respect to the end of like the index, I guess, but you're not going to complain to your guys, but even though you are also experiencing everything that they're experiencing in terms of, fatigue and all this kind of stuff, because I mean, 36 hours to be out or 30 hours to be out and physically active, like that's not a joke, right? That is
Mhm.
a very high volume of physical exertion, right? Not to mention that, again, like you said, you're not getting a lot of sleep. Well, you got lots of sleep, so maybe you're the
Yeah,
exception,
yeah.
but like
No,
most
people will give me
people.
lots of crap for that. I know Edgar, if you listen to this, he's like, Jordan slept like a baby. He got like 3 hours of sleep. We got 15 minutes. That's a skill issue, bro. We were just in the right place at the right time. We got to
Yeah.
get the good sleep. Like, that's not my fault. It's just where we were put at the time. But no, I mean, it's absolutely like we were under immense stress and turnaround times that entire time. It wasn't a relaxing weekend by any means. Like, a
Yeah,
lot of people are like, vacation, like it's airsoft with my friends. No,
you
that's
you
not
need a
what this
weekend to
was at all.
recover from your
That's
weekend,
not
right?
what this was at all. Yeah, no, I had like a full day after, like I took the Monday off. That way I could come home and just do nothing and just like lay down and just like think
Hmm.
about everything that we had just done. And overall, it was a lot of type 2 fun. Sucked in the moment. Look back on it. In fact, a lot of us were thinking, "Wow, this sucks" at the moment. We had dinner. We had the luau, right, which is like where they normally have like all the villagers and all the red team and stuff come and group up and eat food and break bread, and we do whatever just because it's like a built-in meal. But like lore wise, like we're eating with the villagers, and that's what's supposed to be, and it's supposed to like fill you up prior to the final evolution, which will be like the most difficult aspect and portion of the event. And we're all sitting around the table, and Phil, we're going to Milsom West this weekend, right? So this is we're recording this on the 26th. We're going to be going to Milsom West on the 28th and the 29th. So 29th through the 31st, excuse me. So we're very close to it. And so that was, 3 weeks ago that we had Midsummer Nightmare. And we're all sitting at the luau eating our food, and we're looking at each other. We're like, do we want to go to Milsim? Do we want to go do something like this again in like 3 weeks? Like, why did we plan events this close together that were like this, that were
Mm-hmm.
like strenuous like this? Like, Milsim West is arguably going to be much more difficult than the event that we just did. Um, but we're all sitting there because we're all in a bad mood and like, wow, this sucks, and like this event is just very difficult, and we're looking at each other like, who wants to go to this? Like, who wants to go play more airsoft after this? Like, we were in a negative mindset because it sucked at that time, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Like, why did we sign up for this? Um, but looking back on it, it's just one of those things where, wow, it really sucked at the time, but it sucked for me and you know 25 to 30 of my guys, and
Yeah.
that means that it actually didn't suck. It was a bonding experience with all the boys, so to speak. So.
Yeah, and I mean, in all the hard things that I've done, and I've done some pretty difficult things, I think, just in general, I've always had these moments, same as you, where it's like, this is a stupid idea. Why am I doing this? Right? Or why am I doing this? And then I've already got another thing lined up in like a month's time. Like, I never want to do this again. Like, this is horrible. And how you deal with your own mindset with respect to that is a huge part of how you enjoy the time there or you don't. I find, for this type of event or the event that we're going to, in October, which is going to be not quite as difficult as Midsummer Nightmare, but still have, some difficult physical challenges associated with it. It's the idea of, well, I paid to be here, right? Like, I paid
Mhm.
my own money. I signed up knowing what this could be, right? And at the end of the day, like, it's like that meme with the dog in the burning house and being like,
This
this
is
is
fine.
fine. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
I tell myself this all the time when I'm doing hard stuff. It's like, you're fine, this is fine, right? Because it's only temporary. And like, for Midsummer Nightmare, or one of the like ultra races or whatever, like, either you finish or you don't. You're not going to
Mhm.
die, right? The stakes are not that, right? So it's like, either you're like, okay, great, or you just walk off the field, you're like, I'm done, right? But you're fine. So
Well,
once you accept that, I find it's easier to just sort of laugh away the other stuff, because yeah, it hurts, but like, whatever, like, you'll be fine in a couple of days, right?
so I would say that specifically goes towards like this Midsummer Nightmare, 100%. And honestly, some of the hardest times I've ever had in my life, some of the hardest experience I've ever gone through, have been through airsoft. They have put me into some seriously difficult and stressful and physically, um, you know, in the shape that I'm at right now, very very difficult situations to navigate. Where a lot of times it's like, wow, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't think I can do this anymore. And there hasn't been a time that I've not
Yeah.
done it. Like, I've been out there and, wow, this sucks. But there hasn't been a time where like, wow, I can't do it anymore. Right? Like, I have guys with me. Like, this weekend we're going to Milsom West, and I think it's going to be very difficult. It's a particularly difficult infill. There's like a big ruck in. I believe a couple. I keep hearing lots of things, but I think the consensus, it seems like 3 to 4 miles with a good amount of elevation over it, like very very steep. On the infill, we're essentially playing on the top of like a hill slash mountain. And I guarantee that that's going to be difficult. And there's going to be people there that are like me, that are going to have a difficult time with the initial, like, getting in, like, wow, this is really tough, like walking this distance. But I have 15 other guys with me that are my closest friends that are going to be there doing it with me. And I know they're not going to let me or anybody in our group, short of, wow, I literally cannot continue,
Yeah, of course.
stop.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're going to get to the top of the hill. We're going to all get there together. We're all going to die, and that's how it's going to be. Like, it's going to be a hell of a weekend, is what I'd say. And I think airsoft has been the device in the past few years that's really delivered me some of those, like, reality check, like, holy crap, this is difficult, but you can do it type of situations that I've been in.
I mean, I think we've talked about this before, maybe not you and I, but we've talked about it on the show. Like, there there comes a point, like, when you're doing some of this stuff, where you're really seeing what you're capable of achieving, right? Like, are you actually capable of doing this? And everything in your mind previous to that would have been like, I either you would have misjudged the situation, been like, "Oh yeah, I totally can," and you get smoked by it, which is certainly one thing that can happen.
Mhm.
But if you're anything like me, you would have looked at it and been like, "I would never be able to do that." And then you get thrust in that situation, you put yourself in the situation sort of willingly, and then when the rubber meets the road, you rise to the occasion because you can push through. You have your own limits, but as you just mentioned, like you're surrounded ideally by people who are going to help lift you up. And I think, for example, when we played at Iron Horse last year, that was a very physically demanding day in a different way, just because of the heat and all this kind of stuff. But like we were surrounded by people who, like on our different squads, were like, yeah, we're doing this together, right? And it's like we either we will succeed as a group or we'll fail as a group, but like the individual, like outside of medical emergencies, which thankfully we did not have any, like
Mhm.
we'll just gonna we would carry through. And that's when you sort of discover how far you can push yourself, which you know playing, like you could play sports, you can do all kinds of stuff, but you're not going to do like a Milsim West type of event or a Midsummer Nightmare type of event challenges you in a way that in typical civilian life you don't encounter that at all, right? So I'm it's cool that you can do that without, because this is the other thing too. Like I think we've talked about not AMS, excuse me, Milsim West a lot, and it's scary for a lot of people, right? It's like, oh well, I'm not advanced enough to do
Dude, it's
Milsim
scary for
West,
me.
right?
I'm like a lot of people are like, wow, Glick plays a lot of airsoft. He's done a lot of Milsons. Yeah, absolutely. I've never done what I think is going to be the most difficult game that I've ever gone to. Like that's coming up. Like I've never done that before. And once I get through this weekend, and I'm confident that with all of my guys, like it's gonna suck, but we're going to get there, and we will accomplish it, and we will get through the weekend. Thankfully, there's no rain on the forecast. It's just supposed to be 70s and 40s days and nights. So
Well,
yeah, it's gonna be, that will be a challenge in itself. But for me specifically, a lot of it is I've done difficult things before. Like I've done strenuous things, and as long as I've prepared myself and I have a good group of guys like around me, like that type of influence goes like a long way.
definitely.
I know that our group is not going to be like, all right, well, Glick's fallen behind. Let's just keep walking. Like
He's
no,
off the
like
team now.
yeah, it's sorry. Like that's not going to happen, right? But um, we're none of us are like. There's a couple of the guys that are in the National Guard that are there or have had military experience in the past, but it's not like our group of guys is like an elite trained group of commandos. Like we're literally all just people. We're
Yeah.
all just guys that are all preparing for this event. And that's the same thing as Midsummer Nightmare, right? There was a lot of people this year that had never done Midsummer Nightmare, and they were asking us for advice on Midsummer Nightmare. And I'm like, it's kind of really difficult to give you advice on Midsummer Nightmare because this is a new location and it changes every single year. Like the advice that I can give you is make sure that you are sufficient for yourself, you have all of the supplies that you need, and that you have dry clothes to change into. Like those are the things I can't give you situational experience here.
Yeah.
I don't know what Midsummer Nightmare is going to be, and I feel like that is part of the appeal of what Gordon is trying to provide. They try to keep as many things of it a secret leading up to it, so that when you come in, it's genuine surprise. What are we going to experience this year? What's the vibe going to be? What are they going to do for us, so to speak? And it means that if you're not just prepared overall, you're gonna have a bad time. It's difficult to prepare for distinct situations.
Yeah.
Because you don't even know if they're going to happen. You just have to prepare for the possibility
You
of
can
bad
control your
situations happening.
controllables, right? Like the only things you can
Exactly.
control, your kit, your self-sustainment and stuff.
Exactly. Like there was a bunch of people like, are we going to be able to sleep in the tents? Are we going to be able to sleep in the tents? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're going to. Like Gordon has said that they can fit a decent amount of people in there. And I'm like, but if I were you, I would bring your own sleeping arrangements. Bring a sleeping pad. Bring a bivy. Bring a blanket. Like those are all things where if you don't fit in the tent, man, that would really suck if you just slept outside with no blanket and there was no tent and no cover. Like, wow, imagine that. Like, prepare for yourself. Like, you always have to
Mhm.
make sure that you yourself are prepared for these types of situations. Preparing for these events, I don't think is much different. You're just carrying in your stuff. Like Midsummer Nightmare and Milsim West, you carry in your food. Milsim West, you don't carry in all of your water because I believe there's water resupplies. But Midsummer Nightmare, I carried out like 2 gallons of water. Like it was loaded onto the truck, and then I had like 3 liters of water like on my person at any given time. So preparation is tough, I'd say, especially when you're coming into an event that we have not done before ever. We just prep the best we can and hope for the
Yeah.
best. Expect the worst, hope for the best in a lot of these situations.
I'm curious to find if, and we'll have a conversation about this at some point, but if the gap between Milsim West and Midsummer Nightmare, especially this last one, was as wide as you thought it would be. That's going to be an interesting conversation.
We'll find out. I think the main gap is going to be just the traversal, the amount of ground covered. We walked a lot at Midsummer Nightmare. One of our guys was recording on Strava for like the first night.
Oh my god.
And I think between 8 a.m. and 5 a.m., it was like 8 miles that we had walked or something like that. And that was not on a huge field, right? And it's not like we're just walking on a road. It's a lot. That's a lot of distance to travel when the field is not a mile long. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot. So, this event that we're going to, it's just a much larger scale. It's going to be in a much bigger area, and like the infill like walk where we're rucking in at nighttime is, I think, going to be like 3 or 4 miles initially of walking, which is a lot. Like when I've done rucks, just with like 30 pounds on my back, which is not a very heavy backpack at all, right? It's gonna be more than that this weekend. I walk about 3 or so miles an hour. Like I think I average 4 miles in about an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. Like I'm just over 3 miles an hour. That's slow in comparison to like a lot of people that are walking like 4 miles an hour. I'm like, 4 miles an hour, man, are you running? Like my legs don't move like that while I'm walking. Like I can't achieve that in that type of speed. So I don't think the experience is going to be much different other than being a much larger scale, right? It's going to be a much larger scale. It's going to be a lot more people there. It's going to be in a much larger area. I think it's going to be a bit like more physically challenging for sure.
Fair enough. So let's close out by talking about the end of Midsummer Nightmare. That sort of the last bit, the last engagement, which had you a little heated. Especially where, I mean, it's Tanner, so it's one of your guys running as CO, and I guess in this context, like he's the CO, but he's also kind of staff for Gordon. Like he's filling he's filling a specific role for Gordon, I guess is where I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me preface this by Tanner was out there with us. He was on the field in that final fight with us while all of the stuff was going down. So I don't blame Tanner. It's just that is where my frustrations were voiced to, because Tanner is my superior in that situation, right? And I'm like, what's going on? Where was everybody? I'm not going to go complain to the other squad. I'm not going to go over to a squad that's in the tent and be like, what are you guys doing? Sleeping? We're dying out there. Like, I'm not going to go do that. Yeah. But I'll go and complain to Tanner, like, hey, what's going on? Where was our backup? So essentially, we had finished one of our final missions and we had retreated back to our base because we were expecting a full-scale assault on basalt. Or was it? No, Obsidian. We were expecting a full-scale assault on Point Obsidian, which is where we had our base flag at, which if they knocked it down, essentially would stop our respawns. And we also hear the possibility of there being vehicles involved, which leading up to this point, there were almost no enemy vehicles that were deployed at this event. And we didn't really have a lot of people that had shock rounds ready to disable an enemy vehicle. Thankfully, somebody did right at the very beginning. But essentially what happened is there was a full-scale assault on Point Obsidian. It was all hands on deck. All squads were out there trying to stop this full-scale assault from Red Team. It was nighttime. There was lots of night vision, lots of lasers and flashlights being shined around all over the place. And Red Team, I don't know if it just felt like it, but it felt like if there was a squad of 5 people on Red Team, 3 people had LMGs in almost every situation. The amount of LMG fire that we took this year was insane. I actually had marks on my face for a few weeks after Midsummer Nightmare because night fighting I was just getting absolutely shredded by LMGs repeatedly. So there's a full-scale assault on our base. We're essentially getting attacked from all angles, quite literally, and these are a couple of my buddies, but Ruben and his brother Simon I believe, literally waded across the stream behind us and came up behind us, like while we were like in the final engagement, and we're like 3 or 4 feet behind Tanner, and he could hear like their boots sloshing like full of water as they were like coming up behind him. So essentially, it had hit the fan. Everything was everywhere. They were all over us, and we were watching, group after group kind of get wiped. And our base isn't that far away, right? It's like 200 feet away. So I'm thinking like, all right, our guys get wiped. They're going to go respawn. They're going to come back and come out and help us. Numbers started dwindling repeatedly as the engagement went on, and we were probably out there for an hour or so in that position, holding and just trying to repel this attack from our base, which was, if they get rid of it, this is the end of the event. What are we supposed to do? Are we going to sleep in the parking lot? Like, what's Gordon going to make? Sorry, you can't sleep in your base tonight. Don't get any of your supplies. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's real hardcore stuff, but I didn't want that to happen. So we're trying to repel this attack, and we're losing, man. We are losing. There's enemy LMG fire. There's suppression happening from everywhere. All of our defenses are going down. And I feel like there's nobody out there besides like my squad and like one other squad. I'm like, where is everybody, man? Like, they are literally on our flag. They are in our home right now. Like, where is our backup? Because our base is 100, 200 feet in that direction. Like, you could go respawn, come back out there. Even if you're just cannon fodder, it at least gives them something to shoot at so that we can make something else happen.
Yeah.
Like, so we can make some stuff work. And my guys are fighting, and we're trying to put out as much fire as we can, but there's like a ton of red team just like coming down the mountains on us. And essentially, like, all of us are going down. Tanner is like trying to whisper me over to the radio, trying to keep people alive. I don't even think he was wearing his night vision during this. He was literally like there with no gun, just on the ground, like just trying to call stuff out to people, like where things were coming in and trying to position people. And we finally all died. Like, all of us died. I got into like a final. I think I was one of the final. There was me and one other guy alive in our group. I got into like a final engagement with the guys, and I took out a couple of red team from the tree that I was laying prone at, and then they zeroed in on my position, and I just start getting hit by lights. Like, they just started hitting me with IR illuminators right on my position. I couldn't back out of where I was. I'm getting suppressed by LMGs. And finally they maneuvered, killed me, and then they killed the last guy that was like behind me, and they announced that they had ended the game, right? So I'm like, what do you mean the game's over? Like, what happened? They're here at our flag. How can we end like this, right? Like, did we all die? Like, what happens in the storyline? And I went back to Tanner because I'm like, dude, where is everybody? Like, it's like me and my squad out there. Where is our help? Where is our backup? If we had 60 guys respawning all the time, they would have been out there. There's no way we should have lost that push, right? And I went back to base, and it looked like there was a lot of people that were already like bedding down, that were like chilling inside base. And I looked at 10, I'm like, dude, where was everybody? Where was our backup during this? Like, we were just out there. We needed help. Where was everybody? And one of my guys on my team, Matt, was like, dude, relax, Jordan, like, chill out. Like, it's just a game. But like, I was like in the moment at the time. Like, what the hell, man? Like, we needed help out there. I said, we've been busting our ass all weekend, going everywhere that you told us to go to. Where was that from everybody else? We backed up every single squad that needed help this weekend. Where was that? Where were the guys? And Tanner was like, dude, I don't know where everybody was. Like, I was out there with you guys. I didn't even have a gun. Like, I was just trying to keep everybody alive on the radio. And I calmed down after that. I was definitely salty, not at red team, right? But I felt like we had more forces than we showed in the final fight. And at previous Midsummer Nightmares, I'm not going to name names, but at previous Midsummer Nightmares, there were also groups that did go to bed early and at previous nights and left us behind. I talked to you about that for one of the nights, Phil. We were like, where's our reinforcements? And there were none. Gordon had come and revived us, like, because there were no reinforcements. It was just us. So I'm a little salty about that, right? You're playing it out. This is the final evolution. If you haven't like injured yourself or like you cannot continue, like, you should be out there helping the guys that you've been out there with the entire time. And granted, it's a game. It's not that serious, right? Like, you paid money, you can quit and stop playing whenever you want. But for me, that was like, a man, we've been out here this whole weekend. You're not going to finish it strong? Like,
Yeah.
what happened? And I come to find out, like, I think some people did try to respawn, and red team just had like a direct avenue on like our walk out of our base and was just cutting people down every time. And I'm sure that started to get frustrating. um, I think I would have taken my group in another direction, which I think Jeff did. He took their squad and they were flanking up the hill and were going to come down behind red team when the game ended, which was the right thing to do. Um, but that was like the final evolution. I was like, man, this was like specifically tough. There were fireworks going off over our heads and like so much suppressive fire from all angles. People quite literally wading across the river behind us and
Yeah.
coming in like full of water to kill us while we're on this final hold. And we lost, man. We lost our point. They detonated our base essentially, and that will be the storyline for next year. Is that we don't have that base, that base of operations that we had established. We don't have control of that at all. I would assume that it doesn't even exist if they literally detonated our location. I don't know what Gordon's going to do next year. All I know is that um, we did not survive the final engagement. There was no happy ending. It
Yeah.
was it was dead. It was
It's
dead.
I mean, it's too bad because it's the kind of like you expect people to do that at like a random like weekend skirmish or like a bigger like a big game on a weekend kind of situation on a Saturday or whatever, to be like, it's the last hour, I'm not going to go back out there, whatever, like. But something like this, you would want to make sure that everyone is all hands on deck. But on the flip side, if you got guys who are like, you know physically beaten down, emotionally beaten down, or because they're fatigued, and then they step out of spawn, and the first thing that happens is you get domed by some red guy that you can't even see because you're not wearing nods,
Yeah.
and you're like, bro, I'm done. Like, I can totally see that happening. It's just unfortunate because these are the kinds of events that, for my money at least, like, if you're not gonna do it here, when are you gonna do it? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna wade across that river and get your boots full of water at this event, when exactly are you gonna do that? Like, never, right? So I mean, and you know that about me. Like, that's the kind of energy that I bring to any sort of these events. Like, I'm gonna go 100% all the time because, like, when else am I gonna get the chance to do that? But I can see the other way. It's just unfortunate where you're in that position that if I'd been there, I would have been right there with you, getting shot at and lit up by all these LMGs, and going back to base and seeing like 20 guys just like bedding down. You're like, bro, what?
Yeah, I'm like, where was everybody, man? Like
Yeah,
it
totally
was.
see
I was
that.
definitely salty at that point. But like, granted, you know, I'm not going to speak for them, right? They could have been walking off. Maybe they got eliminated. They were trying to resupply and come back out. Like, I don't know. Their experience is none of my business at that point, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
I know is that we lost our base, bro. Like, they came in, they detonated our location, they stole our flag. I don't know what that means for next year, Phil. I
Yeah.
don't know what that means. Maybe we have to set up a new base of operations. Maybe we don't have a base of operations and our entire weekend is fobs. Like, we are literally setting up makeshift fobs around the entire place, trying to avoid detection because we don't have that type of setup
Mm.
anymore. Like, who
Could
knows?
be a Milsim Wet situation.
Like
Who knows? Yeah.
all I know is that this year was different than all of the last years. I thoroughly enjoyed this year, and it was the toughest year of Midsummer Nightmare that I've experienced so far. I think our complaints from last year about not having enough red team uh, were not a problem this year. I think that they were particularly violent. I think that it's because we were talking about how we were not getting a lot of action last year, and they definitely gave us action. Exactly. Maybe more action than what some people wanted this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it was tough. It was brutal. It was a very difficult weekend. It's taken me a lot of time kind of to look back on it and like remember all of the aspects that I really enjoyed. But Midsummer Nightmare from Stag Ops continues to be my favorite event that Gordon puts on. Probably only second to the Tier 1 event, the only Tier 1 event that I've ever been to, which I want to go to again. Um, but this year of Midsummer Nightmare, I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing, and this is always my pet peeve, is storyline, man. I want to know more about the lore. Some people don't care. If you don't care, Midsummer Nightmare is not the game for you. I'm going to say that right now, right? Like, if you don't want to come out and feel like you're enjoying a storyline and feel like you're LARPing and play the game not for the game of airsoft, but for the experience itself, Midsummer Nightmare maybe is not the thing for you. And for me, that's such a big piece of Midsummer Nightmare that when I don't experience the amount of lore drop and immersion from it that I feel like I should, it feels like a bit of a letdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my only real critique was, man, I wish I knew more about what we were doing here. I wish I knew more about what the situation that is entailing this mission is a result of.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's something that I can get more of in the future. I can't wait to go back again. It was an awesome location, a fantastic location for Midsummer Nightmare. It really is a well put together field that's still in its infancy, that is being worked on actively almost every single weekend by the people that own and essentially are the regulars and like live at this field. Like they're there
Mm-hmm.
all the time. So for anybody in the future that is thinking about going to Midsummer Nightmare, still was an absolute blast. It's a different experience. It's an airsoft experience. It's not an airsoft game. Is how I describe it. You're going to go there. It's going to suck. It's going to be fun. Maybe not all at once, but it will be an experience. And I recommend everybody get out to at least one and try it out if you guys can make the trip or if you're in the area.
And I guess tune in next year around this time to figure out what exactly happened to the JTF Panther base and how they managed to recover or not, I guess, in this new situation. But Jordan, man, thanks so much for coming on and talk to us about Midsummer Nightmare. It's always a treat to get to chat with you about this event, and I really am hoping to be able to hit that event in the near future. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely, Phil. Thank you for having me on. This is one of my favorite things to do is to reminisce on this event, and it's awesome to kind of think of the evolution that this event has gone through with me over the years. You know, from the first Midsummer Nightmare that I've been at to now this, where it's like my fourth. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
we've been here a lot. We've done this a lot now at this point. So I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait for more challenging events like this. And special thanks to all the guys from Red Team and all the staff members that came through and put on the experience this year. Maybe don't shoot me in specifically so hard next time. That was
We'll get you a special
rough
patch.
weekend. Yeah,
We'll get you a
don't
special
shoot.
like yeah.
Like I'll have it like reflector at night or something. I'll have like a staff light on me. But yeah, it was a great time. Thank you for everybody that was out there. Thank you to Joe, Colin, and Jacob who came out to play as well. They traveled, they flew in for this. Well, Joe drove in, but Colin and Jacob flew in for this. So thank you to everybody that was doing that. And I hope to see more of the Storm Riders Foreign Legion out at this event in the future.
Yes,
So.
sir. And thank you guys for listening. That's all we got for you this week. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.